Thanks for tuning in. It's 10 a.m. on a Monday, April 21st here in Korea, live from Seoul. I'm Ju. We are into the sixth day of search and rescue operations for the victims of the capsized Sewol-ho ferry, but there hasn't been any hopeful news yet. The death toll continues to rise and unfortunately is expected to go up even more in the coming hours and days. Now let's go straight over to our Hwang and Ji Myung-kil at Paengmok-hang Harbor, some 20 kilometers away from the accident site. What's the latest, guys?
Jinju, it's only 10 a.m. here in Korea, and already 5 bodies have been retrieved today, raising the total confirmed death toll to 64. Now, the bodies have yet to be identified, but they are believed to be female high school students. Some of them were located on the 4th floor of the vessel, which were where the cabins for these high school students were, and which is where most of these high school students were believed to be at the time of the accident. Now, unfortunately, the number of survivors remains unchanged at 174, and more than 200 people still remain missing inside that sunken ship. 5 days have passed since the Sewol-ho ferry went down, and the families are holding on to their last bits of hope, and rescue teams are racing against time to find survivors in the capsized vessel.
That's right, Sung-hee. The rescue team deployed underwater drones last night to speed up the rescue process. Divers were able to connect a 50-meter guide line to the bottom part of the vessel, securing new routes. The divers are also searching into the 3rd floor and the cafeteria of the sunken ferry. And to speed up operations on Monday, the rescue teams have deployed 90 Coast Guard ships, 32 Navy vessels, 90 fishing boats, 34 aircrafts, and over 500 divers. The weather conditions look favorable with clear skies and calm tidal waves at 2-meter levels. However, winds are blowing at a speed of 9 meters per second.
We really hope to be able to bring you guys some good news throughout the day. This has been Hwang and Ji Myung-kil reporting live from Paengmok-hang Harbor.
A recording of the ferry's radio distress call released on Sunday shows there was confusion and indecision by the crew. The families of the victims and the missing are demanding to know why and how the crew was able to escape while the passengers were ordered to stay put in their cabins. Our Hyun-kyung has the details.
Even if you speak Korean, it's difficult to make out what the two sides are saying. But what's evident is that the situation sounds quite dire. The joint investigation team composed of the police and the prosecution released the transcript on Sunday. The Sewol-ho ferry and the Chindo Vessel Traffic Service, which is the Marine Traffic Control Center, made contacts 11 times and communicated for 31 minutes. The control center first contacted the sinking ferry at 9:06 a.m. Wednesday. At 9:12 a.m., the ferry was already severely tilted. The crew member who was talking to the control center already knew that the people on board were not able to move. The control center told the ferry that the captain needs to decide whether to order passengers to abandon the vessel. That was around 9:25 a.m., but the ferry said it was unable to make announcements because the speaker system was down. And the last time the two made contact was at 9:37 a.m. when the ferry told the control tower that only the people who were able to escape to the left side of the ferry were able to leave the vessel. Whether the captain was in the steering room when the communications were being made is still unknown. Captain Lee Jun-seok is arrested and formally charged for escaping the ship before the passengers. Further investigation will determine whether the captain in fact did neglect his duty by not promptly notifying the passengers about the situation during that 30-minute time frame. Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
We turn next to our Eunice Kim at the News Center for a look at the investigations that are underway as a result of this disaster. Eunice, a new probe has been opened on the ferry company, and members of the crew and management are being banned from leaving the country.
That's right, Jinju. Many layers to this ongoing investigation. Police and prosecutors are jointly probing the cause of the accident, and they're now extending their investigation to the shipping company Cheonghye-jin. Now, as part of the probe, prosecutors have issued travel bans on some 40 people, including members of the owner family, the head management, as well as crew members, to ensure they do not leave the country.
Right, and investigators are also looking at the condition of the Sewol-ho ferry. The ship is known to have been renovated a couple of times from its previous form when it was imported from Japan.
That's right. The Sewol-ho ferry was already a 20-year-old ship when it was imported, and according to a report submitted to the Financial Supervisory Service by the ferry company, the ship underwent months of renovation to extend its sailing life by more than a decade. So they'll pour over that. Meanwhile, we're hearing of more cases of phone scams and smishing, so users should be vigilant while investigators try to get a handle on people taking advantage of a bad situation. Investigators will also work with popular messaging application Kakao Talk to try and piece together the accident using the text messages sent and received by the passengers on board. And that's all from me here at the News Center. Back to you, Jinju.
Now, going back to the victims of this disaster, once bodies are recovered, or better yet, if survivors are found, they'll be brought to the Paengmok-hang Hospital, located in Korea's southern Jeollanam-do province, where hospital staff have been working around the clock. Kim Hyun-bin is standing by. Hyun-bin.
Hi, Jinju. No bodies or survivors have arrived since I've been here early this morning. This is one of the 5 hospitals that are processing the bodies for identification, as well as collecting DNA samples. Currently, there are 24 bodies at these hospitals, 2 of which are located here in Mokpo. A medical helicopter is on standby, along with 2 medics, so that the hospital can efficiently transport rescue survivors or the deceased. Paengmok-hang Hospital officials say 50 beds have been reserved for any possible survivors that are found, and 20 doctors or nurses are on standby 24/7. Since rescue operations are entering the 6th day, hopes to find survivors are slowly dimming, and officials are expecting more bodies to be transferred here throughout the day. Back to you, Jinju.
But Hyun-bin, as for the survivors rescued on the first day of the accident, they're being treated there, and I heard that they're experiencing a severe depression and anxiety, and the hospital has forbid anyone to visit them except for family members. How are they doing?
Well, Jinju, not so good. Doctors say all the survivors are suffering from post-traumatic stress, and roughly half of them are under medication, which is a clear indication of the severity of their conditions. And even family members are suffering from shock. One of the fathers of a missing student suffered a stroke, and some of the survivors are suffering from depression and even amnesia. Well, this has been Kim Hyun-bin reporting live at the Paengmok-hang Hospital, and we'll have updates throughout the day.
Now, when it comes to the bodies that are recovered, they go through a series of identification procedures to ensure accuracy. But with so many grieving families desperately waiting for news, medical staff have begun collecting DNA samples from the families of the missing passengers to help speed up the process. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
When bodies are recovered, the first procedure is to check the personal belongings of the victim and their physical appearance, such as their height. If the body is able to be identified, the family is contacted so they can confirm with their own eyes. If the body can't be identified, the body is sent to a nearby hospital for examination, which includes taking DNA samples and fingerprint identification. Blood tests and biopsies are taken if the recovered body has been severely damaged. However, with fears of a sudden rush of bodies being recovered at once and complaints that the procedures have been inefficient, medical experts have begun collecting DNA samples from relatives of the missing passengers. Tents to collect DNA have been set up beside the auditorium where many families of the missing passengers have been spending sleepless nights, as well as at Paengmok-hang Harbor, near the site of the accident. While rescue divers are putting in great efforts to search for survivors and recover bodies, the time that has passed and the harsh conditions at sea could now make it difficult to identify the bodies. Almost 90% of the relatives of the missing have registered their DNA. Although they are still clinging on to hope their loved ones are still alive, some are preparing for the worst.
My wife still wants to believe our child will come back alive, but looking at the situation now, I just hope our child's body comes back soundly at least.
With unfavorable weather and harsh conditions at sea hampering rescue efforts, the physical and mental health of the families are also deteriorating by the minute.
I took care of my niece for 11 years. I'm so upset. I told her to have a safe trip and she said yes. Since then, I've heard nothing.
Navy officials say the DNA samples will be analyzed as soon as possible. The DNA samples will be sent to the National Forensic Center to see if they match with the victims. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Identified bodies are then transferred to local hospitals, and Korea University Ansan Hospital is one of them. But the families of the missing are clinging on to the last string of hope that their loved ones will be found alive, but most are also preparing for the worst. Arirang News' Kim Ji-yeon is standing by at the hospital. Ji-yeon, how's the atmosphere there?
Mark, Jinju, I'm standing in front of the Ansan Hospital in the city of Ansan, in the Korea University Hospital in the city of Ansan. This is where most of the passengers, more than 320 students, were here living and went to school here. Bodies are sent to this hospital from the southern part of the region, and most of them are the families and the community and the friends are gathering here to mourn and grieve for the fallen. Well, the body of the vice principal of the Tanon High School, who is identified by his surname Kang, was released this morning. Mr. Kang committed suicide due to the overwhelming guilt he felt at being rescued and being unable to help the students while on the ferry. Some of the bodies of the students are also held at this hospital, but due to parents' requests, their release was postponed. Their bodies will be released at a group memorial altar that will be set up on Wednesday at the Ansan Olympic Memorial Hall for the students and teachers.
Now, Ji-yeon, the people directly affected by this are understandably devastated, but how are the residents of Ansan coping with the situation?
Well, Jinju, Mark, the Ansan is located at the outskirts of the capital city of Seoul with a population of more than 780,000. It's a very vibrant city, but it's also a very cohesive community where everyone knows each other. One's friend is an acquaintance of the other, a son of a working colleague, a daughter of a mom and pop store. Upon news that they're missing, there's a hushed silence for several days now as the whole city mourns for the dead. More than 10 events that were normally scheduled around this time of the year has been canceled or postponed indefinitely. The warmth of spring is not to be found in the city of Ansan. I'm Kim Ji-yeon live in the city of Ansan.
With many more clues emerging about what might have caused the Sewol-ho ferry to sink, the puzzle is slowly being put together. Kim Min-ji reports on 3 possible scenarios that could have occurred simultaneously, one after another.
Around 8:30 a.m. on Wednesday, April 16th, the Sewol-ho ferry passed through treacherous waters which are notorious here in Korea for their strong currents. 18 minutes later, the ferry veers suddenly, which is being pointed to as the first factor in the sinking. The stern is believed to have turned 80 degrees to the right.
What it means by the vessel supposedly making a P-turn is that the helm was turned to the right, then back again. But the boat didn't come back to its original position. Operations momentarily froze, which results in the ferry making a complete turn.
Due to centrifugal force, the vessel tilts to the left. Now this is when the second factor may have come in. Grips holding down on the ferry's freight may have come loose, causing containers and vehicles in the cargo compartment to lift sharply to one side. The weight concentrated on just one side of the ferry causes it to tilt even further. If the vessel had enough dynamic stability, the vessel could have bounced back to the other side and maintained balance. However, due to renovations to increase the vessel's capacity, the center of gravity on the ship had been raised from its original design.
Due to the expansion of the ship, the upper structure has been changed, making the center of gravity much higher. If the center of gravity and buoyancy are far apart, the dynamic stability decreases.
Experts say the reduced dynamic stability caused the vessel to completely submerge because it wasn't able to recover from the initial tilt. They add that the Sewol-ho ferry may not have had enough ballast water, which maintains the balance of the vessel in order to carry more cargo. As all three factors could have been prevented, experts say the sinking will likely be attributed to human error. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Even those who were not directly involved in the ferry incident could display symptoms of acute stress and anxiety. That's what's happening to the people of Ansan, with the whole city caught in complete shock as the second-year students of Ansan's Tanwon High School, most of them missing, were on board the Sewol-ho ferry. Sun Jung-in has more.
The entire city of Ansan is deep in sorrow. It has been a heart-wrenching time for everyone, even for those who are not directly affected by the disaster.
I see the same news every day. The media are all covering the story 24 hours a day now, and all of the mothers are crying watching it.
Many have complained of sleep disturbances at night and poor concentration during the day.
All of the residents here are depressed and saddened by the accident. We are also angry, thinking about why this happened in the first place.
The entire city is prone to post-traumatic stress disorder, which often occurs after a person has gone through an overwhelming life experience such as this. Back in 2001, after a terrorist attack in New York on 9/11, some 532,000 people were said to have been suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, which made it hard for them to go through their lives while feeling a sense of normalcy for the next month or more. Even an indirect experience through TV or the internet can have a similar impact and produce stress. It's not only the survivors and the families of the missing who are at risk for PTSD, it's also witnesses and rescue operators. But it's the students and teachers from Tanwon High School who are assumed to be suffering the most.
They can suffer from insomnia, nightmares, and flashbacks of past traumatic events. In extreme cases, they can have a hard time adapting to their social life, and in extreme cases, it can even lead to suicide.
Symptoms of PTSD can even show up years after an accident, so it is important to keep an eye on anyone with the condition. Experts recommend that people suffering from PTSD see a doctor if they have distressing dreams or a sensitive reaction to their surroundings. In addition, they advise parents and adults to talk with young children and teenagers about the news and limit their exposure. Sun Jung-in, Arirang News.
The terrible loss of so many young souls has plunged the entire nation in deep sorrow and despair. In respect to the victims and the still missing, TV stations have canceled entertainment shows. Baseball and soccer matches are being played in silent stadiums, and the public have massed for candlelight vigils. Seo Mi-sorang reports.
An accident that has left so many in disbelief. People all over the country had their eyes and ears fixed on news of the ferry disaster. It was to share the weight of the tragic accident and console families who were told by their children that they love them and that they shouldn't worry. Weekend prime time. Laughter has faded from what would normally be a fierce entertainment competition between the major television networks. With one of Korea's favorite sports, baseball season in full swing, all the loudspeakers and cheerleaders have disappeared from the stadiums. All that is left is the players who solemnly play without any cheering or events. People in Korea are sharing the pain as if it is a loss of their own, something the country has experienced in times of need.
I wanted to help in any way that I could, so I joined the candlelight vigil. I really hope that with the whole country coming together, that a miracle will happen.
During the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the Korean public donated their wedding rings and other gold items to help the country pull out of the economic crisis. And after one of the worst oil spills off the Taean coast in 2007, the area was able to recover its nature after an endless number of volunteers helped clean up the spill. Regardless of whether it is for good or bad times, the nation has been able to come together, setting individual needs aside and sharing a spirit of unity.
Korea has a strong collective sentiment. This is something that is just as important as collective intelligence. The entire country is sharing the sentiment that the students in the sinking are not simply children of other families, but actually part of an extended family. This is the force that brings the country together as one.
서미소랑, Arirang News.
Let's get an update on the weather conditions in Jindo and around the country. The current has gotten weaker compared to last few days, and these certain times of the day should decrease the speed of flow. One is coming up at 1:09 and next will be 6:40 p.m. later in the day. And it looks like the weather should continue to get better through this week as the neap tide occurs from tomorrow to Thursday. Well, neap tides are the tides that occur when the difference between high and low tide is least. So hopefully this boosts the search and rescue operation at the site. And sky should remain mostly sunny today, but more clouds could roll into the area later in the afternoon, and temperatures should be a tad higher than yesterday. And as for the other parts of the country, morning lows have started in the low teens, and we can expect to see 2 to 6 degrees warmer afternoon highs today under mostly sunny skies. Well, that's all for now, and I'll be back with more updates afternoon.
And that's about it for now. More updates are coming up in about half an hour at 11 a.m. Korea time, so stay tuned for the latest developments on the ferry sinking. Thank you for watching.